Hello and welcome to the FatBoss Guide to Mother in Uldir.
This simple encounter has very few mechanics, however if the strategy is not executed perfectly by your entire raid, your healers will quickly fall behind, or even worse, you'll all just be set on fire. With that in mind, let's go straight into it.
This encounter takes place within 3 rooms, each separated by a defense grid. When the boss is present within a room, the room will slowly gain energy. At 100% energy, the room will ignite and set fire to all members of the raid still within it. So the idea is that you leave a room before it reaches full energy and wipes you. However, when you pass through the defense grid, it will do a large burst of damage to the entire raid, so you have to do it in a staggered fashion. You need to choose a point when you are going to leave the first room by sending people through the defense grid. In a larger raid size, we recommend that you start sending people through the grid at around 30% energy. Of course, in a smaller raid size, you can start this process much later on, as you just simply have less people to move through the grid. To get players through, you want to send them in groups of 3, only sending another group once the raid has been topped up. The first group you send through must consist of at least 1 tank. This is because each time a player passes through the grid, they'll also spawn an ad shortly afterwards. These ads have little health, but they have a raid wiping cast. If a single clinging corruption cast goes off, your healers will quickly fall behind, so it is vital that you interrupt this cast or use stuns. To keep on top of these ads, you'll want to get as many people over into the next room as possible. You should use healing cooldowns and damage reductions on the first 2 groups just to speed this up. The second group of people you send over should consist of at least 1 healer. This is because the defense grid actually acts as a line of sight, preventing you from healing or dealing damage through it. Once you've got both of these first groups to the other side, it becomes very easy to deal with the ads just because of the amount of players you have. And after these first 2 groups, you can pretty much send whoever you like across, as long as you try to balance the amount of healers within each room in a good ratio to the amount of players within them. Just make sure the tank with the boss moves over last, as the energy of the room only begins to climb once the boss is within it. Now whilst you're dealing with all of that, there are of course boss abilities to also watch out for.
Whatever tank you have dealing with the boss must make sure that she's facing away from the raid at all times. On a timer she will cast Sanitizing Strike at you. This frontal cone deals a large amount of damage and debuffs you to take even more damage from the slam. This ability is however completely avoidable, you just need to sidestep the cast. For everyone to avoid and watch out for is the Purifying Flames. These flames are spawned under every player in the raid and erupt shortly afterwards. They do a lot of damage if you are hit, but you have plenty of time to move from them. Also to keep an eye on is the winds. On a timer you'll be pushed towards one side of the room that will have open flame vents. The winds themselves don't do any damage, but the vents hurt a lot. Best practice is just to stand within the middle of a room and then just run against the winds whenever they begin. Once you've eventually dealt with those mechanics and managed to get everyone through the defense grid, you'll now have defensive beams to deal with in the second room, and there are 2 different types of them. One comes directly from the walls and has a single open safe spot within it. Just be quick to recognize which direction it is coming from and quickly move into the open space. The second comes from the ceiling. You need to watch out for the line of spinny circles, as these are your safe spots. If you're hit by either of these beams, you might not necessarily be one shot, but it will definitely slow down groups of players going through, as the healers will have to focus on you rather than the rest of the raid. Now it's at this point we should probably mention that it's entirely possible to kill the boss within this second room, even within these first early weeks, if your damage is high enough. This is something we definitely recommend trying to do if you think you can. Otherwise you'll be forced to use the third and final room, which isn't really a big issue at all, but it just means that everyone in the entire raid has to go through the defense grid again, which really is the hardest part of the encounter. If you do need to use the third and final room, you'll notice that as soon as the boss enters it, she will gain 100% damage taken increase debuff, meaning that you can burn her off really quick to 10% to end the encounter. Aside from that, there are no new abilities or mechanics to deal with in this last room, and that's pretty much all you need to know for this encounter.
If you'd like to see all the spell tooltips for this fight, as well as updated strategies, loot and achievement information and a whole lot more, then check out our guide over on Wowhead. A link for that can be found in the description below. Thank you to Discord who has sponsored this guide series. They've recently upgraded their game overlay. Not only can you see whatever voice channel you're in, but you can also view text chats, meaning you can now keep in touch with people without having to tab out. We find it particularly useful to keep boss notes handy from our own Discord. You can find a link to our Discord in the description below. Now this overlay can easily be enabled by going into your user settings, clicking on games and making sure it's turned on for WoW. You can then go into overlay, enable it, set a keybind, and then you're good to go. Coming soon to the overlay is the ability to actually pin channels directly over the game you're playing, allowing you to catch the exact moment when somebody posts in your favorite channel. And before we do go, we'd like to say a big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon for your continued support of the channel. We really do appreciate it. And thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks for watching.